Hey, welcome back to another episode of SCPC, this Scruffy Nerf Herder Skeleton Crew podcast.
By the way, I got to give you some props on that intro. I really like that intro. I didn't get to see it until you released the last episode, but I really like it.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I was playing around with some green screens, and I was like, oh, you know what?
It's
That's the
good.
thing. That's the fun thing about content creation. It's like there's so many things that I've learned to do that I'm like never knew how to do before, but now you get to learn. So it's fun.
Learning's fun all around.
Yeah. Big week. We got a brand new episode of the Skeleton Crew that literally just dropped. We both watched it. I've got some thoughts, and
I got a lot of thoughts.
yeah, a lot of liars in the Star Wars universe.
Piracy, that's how it goes.
Yeah, so I guess we pick up exactly where we left off, right? The parents all circled around the table, being like, "We lost our kids," and pretty much droids are just saying, "Tough luck."
that's a good way to describe it. So one thing that I caught in that scene was obviously you get the different, I don't want to say parenting styles, but the different ways that parents were kind of handling that sort of, I guess, grief.
Mm-hmm.
Wendell just seemed very concerned. Neil's mom was trying to be like the soothing, comforting part of it. You had KB's parents looking just very, very distraught and almost like super helicopter parents, or like she's got illnesses and she's got meds she has to take. And I'm like, I didn't know about any of this from the first episode. Like she seemed perfectly fine. We didn't see any case of her having to take any meds or anything like that. But and then you have Fern's mom looking very much like everything will be fine. Everything will work out. It's fine. Everything's fine. So it's just very different styles of, I guess, parenting or how they're reacting to it. And one thing that maybe I was overlooking was when the droid came in and basically was like, hey, they crossed the barrier. There's nothing much we can do. We can contact the Republic, but because they crossed the barrier, there's not much we can do. Wendell, I felt like he had this moment where he sat down and he kind of took his glasses off. And I was like, is this a moment of him being like, oh my gosh, my son's lost? Or is this like he has some secret plan? Like maybe, because we obviously don't know much about what they do for work. Maybe he has connections or something.
Yeah, it was also I took it as one of those where he was like, "This is some bullshit."
That's a simpler way of looking at it.
He was just sitting there and be like, "I can't get my son. This is some bullshit. Like we're gonna figure this out." Because I think that we're gonna see Wendell be a lot like his son, and he's just kind of like a little like, he had to put all that childhood hero desire away to focus on the greater work, and now he's like, you know what? I'm going to have to be that Jedi. I'm going to have to be the hero. So maybe we see him cause a little ruckus on
Maybe that's a good
we'll see
character development that we see.
Yeah. Another thing, there's a lot of weird names in this show. A lot of weird names. Jod Nawood.
Do you have some secret thing like you did with Smee behind that? Does that mean something? Because I was trying to figure it out.
He said it and I had to put captions on. I was like, what the frick did he just say?
Thankfully, I was already watching it with Captain, so I was able to write exactly the Jod Nawood, and I was like, huh. And so I don't know. I was trying to make something because I was so impressed last week when you were like SM33. It's Smee. I was like, what? I'm like, what else are they hiding in here? So then when they said Jod Nawood, I was like, Jod Nawood. I don't know. I got nothing. I was
Bro, it sounds like you're from Avatar just now. Jake Sully.
Jake Sully. Yeah. Interestingly enough, Jod Nawood is very much talking about the Force.
Mm-hmm.
Like he just says, the Force provided, and he's acknowledging the Force, which is maybe like, maybe he is a Jedi because we still don't know what's going on with this guy at this point. They're trying to escape, and Wim comments that he knew somebody was coming around the corner because of his Jedi senses.
Right.
And there was, I think, Fern or KB when Wim was like, hold on, wait. And more people came. They were like, oh, look, he's a Jedi too. Making fun of the fact that he just kind of heard somebody come around the corner. Did you notice what he did though when Jude Law's character Jod Nawood? Maybe that's no, nothing. Okay. When he knocked out this guy, he grabbed a blaster, which I felt was so uncivilized.
Yeah, it's a very un-Jedi move.
Not like a Jedi. So again, I had this. What'd you think?
No, I was saying it was kind of the same brainwave. Like, I
Yeah.
was literally the same thing. When he picked up the blaster, I go, he's not a Jedi.
Yeah,
I was
that's how
like,
I felt
force
too.
push, force pull, do other cool stuff. You could use your mind tricks.
But so the thing that was weird was like I was like, Jedi's don't use blasters, but we saw Obi-Wan use one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like they don't know how.
Yeah. But it's also one of those that I was like, for as much crap as people give the Star Wars universe, if they continued on him, it's like, this guy's name is Jod Nawood, and I now have to go to like Galaxy's Edge and be like, oh, that's Jod Nawood. Let me get my photo. Let me get Jod Nawood's lightsaber,
Jod!
please.
That's fair.
No.
That's fair.
Yeah. So then we get the moment that we were kind of speculating last week, and we finally got to see it. They get to the ship, right? They finally get on, and they're like, we can't leave without Smee. We got to get SM-33. And Jod's like, nah, I'm not doing it. It's too risky. And they're all like, if you're a Jedi, you could do it. And I was like, that's such a great scene. It's all these kids are just like, hey, man, you got to do it. And as a dad, I felt so seen in that scene. I was just like, I've been here so many times where I've been called out. I'm just like,
The kid's like, you can't do that. Come on,
yeah.
you can, Dad, right? And you're like, oh gosh, can't say
Yep.
no at this point. Yeah, that was an interesting moment where they were kind of pressuring him, I guess, at that point, because even Fern was very much like, you are a Jedi, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you can do this, right? And then he's like, of course. So he acknowledges that he's a Jedi. He doesn't directly say it, but he acknowledges because she directly says, you're a Jedi, aren't you? And so.
And then we get him to go back to port, and he travels to go get Smee. And when he lands, we learn he's a liar.
He's a liar.
Jod Nawood is not canon.
We hear some claims, some guy saying Captain Silvo. No, Silvo. Silvo has broken from the brig.
Yep.
So my first thing was like, okay, is this guy Jod or is he Silvo? What the heck?
Mm-hmm.
So
where do you land? Do you think I mean, granted, in the show when you're watching it in this moment, do you think he's actually a Jedi, or you think he's just faking it?
At that point, immediately, as soon as there was another name stated, I was like, he's not a Jedi. Mm-hmm. I'd be hard pressed to continue to believe that he is a Jedi, but then I have the real confusing notion of how did he use the Force? Mm-hmm. He acknowledged that it was the Force, but did he do that because Wim said, you're a Jedi, aren't you? Mm-hmm. So it's like, obviously, if kids heard stories about Jedis, other people have heard stories about Jedis. So how is he seemingly using the Force, but not being a Jedi?
Yeah, I'm going to subscribe to the notion that he killed a Jedi in jail, stole his robes, and decided to, like, fake it. And I think they even dropped a line that they're like, how do you bring the key to him? And, like, I think Fern just listed, like, 40,000 things. She's like, string, magnets. And, like, I'm just like, oh, yeah, anybody can be a Jedi, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll uncover more of that mystery, as it goes on, because even at this point, we're still not sure what he's doing with that. But
so Silvo gets to where Smee is being captured, and there's like a little nostalgia scene in it that made me laugh so hard. He's like turning on the droids, and like one of them's super annoying, so he shuts them off. And then the other one's like, we got to save the prince, and he just sets them off. And then the next one he goes up to is like a battle droid from the Clone Wars, and he hits it, and it's just like, did we win? And I was just like, this poor robot just has been off, thinking the war is still going on.
That was the best. That's the first thing he says. Did we win?
Yeah.
After that, though, we see Smee,
mm-hmm.
and they made the notion, which my wife was very upset that last week I didn't mention the fact that there is a 4-eyed rat that lives inside Smee.
Yeah, very
She's
important.
Like, how did you not mention that at all? But that becomes important at this point, because in my head I was like, well, he kind of ran away. Like, I guess he's not really important anymore. But I think it was Neil had mentioned he's got a rat that lives in his eye, and that was kind of what tipped Jod or Silvo, whatever we want to call him, into knowing that it was Smee, because Smee didn't outright say, that he was who he was. He just basically was like, depends who's asking.
That was literally one of my favorite parts of this episode, is the story arc where the 4-eyed rat becomes Neil's pet.
Basically.
Yeah, and he's just like feeding it and petting it on the ship, and I'm like, all right, bud, cool. Kids show, PG. So Silvo basically gets Smee, brings him back to the ship. He's like getting shot at by like Brutus's minions and stuff, and they're like anchored down by a fuel line and they're trying to escape. And it's one of your like classic Star Wars heroes try to escape, and then everybody causes like damage and chaos. And man, the amount of ships that got destroyed in this was impressive, very impressive.
It reminded me of like one of those scenes that you see in a lot of movies where like somebody accidentally tips over like a biker's bike, and it knocks all of them down, and they're all just angry at him. I'm like, that's kind of the equivalent. Like he was just. You just do a PV reference.
That's exactly what the movie is. He knocks down all the bikes and then he goes in and it's like, da 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 da. You're telling me that that's what Silvo did in the movie? Is he just knocked down all the bikers' bikes? Pee Wee Herman them. 90% of the people watching who are like, who Skeleton Crew is like targeted for are gonna understand that reference. None of them.
Yeah.
Anyway,
after he pee-weed them, he did an interesting thing. He jumped to hyperspace while being tethered.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess, you know, Star Wars is constantly changing up physics of things, and a lot of them seem to deal with hyperspace or jumps to light speed. So you got the hold to maneuver and all these other things. But I was curious, like, what I guess that would do to a ship.
Yeah, I think after what we just talked about is we need to call it the Herman maneuver. That's what we're going to call it from now on. We declared it here on this show. Hold all maneuver. Herman maneuver. No, I was kind of watching that scene the same way as you, because like he was tethered to the gas line, but all the other ships were like kind of connected to him. And I was like, oh, it would be so badass if he jumped into hyperspace and then dragged all the ships with him into hyperspace. So when like he got out, there's just like 30 ships surrounding him, and he's like, whoops.
Whoopsies. Yeah, no, it still does quite a bit of damage.
Yes.
But after, well, actually, so something that happened before that even was when he was getting Smee, we meet a guy named Benjar Pranik, who says, Captain Silvo, is that you? So now we get this notion that he's captain. So last episode we discussed, you know, which captain was still alive. I believe now this is the captain from the opening scene of the show. Yes. That we didn't see. That's my assumption at this point, because they were like, you know, he's letting you free before you stand trial, like, which I don't know, maybe not. I don't know who'd stand trial for at that point, but he's referring to him as Captain Silvo and said he was the greatest. What do you call him? Skipper that he served under,
something like that line. Yeah.
But so now he had the title of captain at this point, Captain Silvo. So obviously we got a couple characters that don't like him, Jod or Silvo, whatever we want to call him. We got Smee that immediately just doesn't like him. KB admits that she doesn't trust him. You know, he's making food and telling Smee to clean up after him, and Smee just knocks the things off because he's like, I'm not your servant. What do you think this is? Like, that's not who I am. And then KB has this moment with him which right before that, I'm sorry to jump off track. Because this is like a kid show, it cracks me up at the amount of things that, like, as a dad, I've seen my kids do themselves. And he's like, all right, guys, time for bed. And Fern's like, I'm not even tired. In the next scene, she's passed out. Like, I just thought that was so funny. I'm like,
I laughed at that exact same scene. It was such a great, I was just like, yep, 100%.
Yeah. So then he comes in, kind of sees them all sleeping, and then he looks at KB, and she just can't really tell if she's awake or not because of her glasses. And so then he's like, I don't remember what he says, something to the effect of like, do you sleep or something? So then she moves her glasses and she's like, I don't trust you. She's like, I've calculated the odds of you being a Jedi and it doesn't make sense. And so then at this point, he seemingly uses the Force again to turn the lights off.
Ooh, I didn't pick up on that.
It could have been a remote control, I guess, but he kind of flicked his hands like this and the lights turned off. And I was like, cool. What the heck, man? I'm like, again, this is where I'm like, is he a Jedi? How does he know what the Force is? How is he using the Force?
Right.
If he is at all, he could just be, you know, it could be a ruse to even the audience at this point too, to add more mystery. So,
yeah, I didn't pick up on that. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm. So like the whole notion where they're like, oh, it could be invisible string or a magnet for the key. It's like, well, he also did something else too, which again could be a remote, like I'm sure there's wireless remotes in a Star Wars universe, but
yeah,
just thought it was interesting.
very interesting. Yeah, and so basically, we get this change in the story where they're going to meet one of Silvo's old friends, and they're going to go land on this moon planet, and they land on it, and it's again kind of a cool thing because we're expanding the Star Wars universe to places we've never seen, but it still has like hints of it as we go on, right? So we land on this planet, and we find out that his friend's name is Kim, and Kim is essentially a owl,
Cat owl.
cat owl. Okay, yeah,
I felt like she was part cat.
very
She had
weird.
like whiskers, like a cat nose, but
Yeah,
also an owl.
yeah, yeah. Also very sentient, very smart, very
Oh
like
yeah,
able to just function. And Kim has like all the star maps to the entire galaxy, and is basically kind of who's the dude from Thor that runs like the gate, the Himdall, I think.
Heimdall. Yeah.
Heimdall. Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting here. Where it was like very much
Hmm.
like all knowing, all so and so. And so they're basically like, hey, this is Crimson Jack. And they're like, Crimson Jack? Who the heck's Crimson Jack? So now we've gotten 3 names for this person. We got Jod Nawood, we got Silvo, and then Crimson Jack, which I think Crimson Jack Silvo would probably make sense in that conversation.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's the names are all over the place. And then I don't know if you were still watching with subtitles at this point, but did you see how Kim's name is spelled?
Kymm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I wrote Kim Kim, and then
Yeah.
I like saw it and I was like, oh, that's way wrong.
Yeah, that is the most Scottsdale written name I've ever seen in my life.
I was gonna say there'd be some kid that started
Kim?
having their name spelled. It's an
Yeah.
apostrophe too. Khy
Yeah.
apostrophe MM. That's what's
No,
gonna be.
it's not KIM. It's KHYMM apostrophe. Oh, I'm so sorry. Next.
Do that voice really well.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
I lived in
Crimson
Arizona
Jack.
enough. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So she says
So-
Crimson Jack in that they're a scoundrel. Ooh.
Oh yeah. She pretty much, is telling the kids not to trust him. He's a scoundrel. Like at this point, Captain Silvo Jack Crimson Jod Nawood has caught on that she's kind of stalling because she kind of changes up when he's like, can you do it quickly? And she's like, yeah, I mean, no, it's gonna take me some time, could take all night. So he gets us on that she's stalling because she had called in a squadron of X-Wings to so now this Captain Crimson Jack, whatever his name is now also in trouble with the New Republic, it appears.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, what's interesting is like when she sees him on the surveillance and like she's radioing into someone, the voice sounded so familiar to me, and I couldn't figure out who it was.
I felt the same way, and I was like, is this going to be somebody that we know?
Mm-hmm.
There's been a couple times where I was hoping we would see people that we've seen from other shows. Like I was hoping that the girl voice, I thought my first initial reaction was the that female mechanic that Din Djarin on Mandalorian always seems to work with.
Yeah.
I thought
like
maybe that's what was going to be. Yeah. And then it changed later on when the X-Wing pilot was shown. I thought it was going to be that guy that we saw in Mandalorian a couple times as well. I can't remember his name, but you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, the guy from Kim's Convenience.
Yeah.
yeah.
I thought it was going to be
I thought the girl's voice was going to be Kira from Solo. You know, the one that like betrays Han at the end, and I was like, "Oh, that'd be such a cool little cameo to be like, she's still alive, but I'm sure she's I'm sure Emilia Clarke is doing plenty of other things that she doesn't need Star Wars right now."
Yeah. So after this whole scene where Captain Jack Nawood Silvo then decides to take the data disk drive with the coordinates to add at it, and which they used kind of some interesting ways because she what did she see, like a patch or metal or something like that on Fern's bag and kind of cross-reference. And they also mentioned Alderaan too, which I thought was interesting because obviously with that not being around anymore, but they know about Alderaan but not other planets. I don't know. So
I think that's like the perfect capture of like that proves that the kids are from Adadin, because even Kim was like, "You missed the war," and it was
Yeah,
just like,
right.
"Yeah,
Like a pretty
Alderaan's
big war.
gone, kids."
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty big war is spanning for some time. So, and they just have no idea about it. And then not the kids too. They had conversations amongst themselves where they're like, "There's some secret treasure hidden on our planet. Like where?"
Right.
And they're like, "Well,
Yeah.
what do our parents do? Like analyze what currency? Like."
Mm-hmm.
So that there's so much mystery with this show that I feel like has been very, very intriguing, because I feel like with other Star Wars shows or episodes or things like that, it's not this constant mystery. There's
Mm-hmm.
usually things that are already familiar. There's things where it's a storyline we kind of already know is going on. And it's more like there's an end goal, but we're trying to get to that end goal and things kind of get in the way. Where this one, it's like there's an end goal, which is to get the kids back home, but then there's so much intrigue and mystery with characters and backgrounds and what their homeworld is, and like how does this homeworld not know about other things or what's being hid. Like
Yeah.
so many layers to this show. It's been really cool. It's been exciting to watch.
Yeah, I was when I was watching this week's episode, I was thinking, I was like, this is a damn good Star Wars show, and I'm like, I know it's meant for kids, but I'm like, I'm really, really enjoying this. And
I don't.
what?
I mean, I don't know if it's meant for kids necessarily. I feel like it's meant for any Star Wars fan. Like,
Yeah, it's for the kid in all of us.
there you go. There you go. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. No, the other thing that I thought was super interesting was that they mentioned that, like, so in the Last Jedi, Star Wars, like, Fallen Order, and then like the Jedi Survivor video games, we
Okay.
get a glimpse into the High Republic,
Mm-hmm.
and the Jedi Order is trying to find like planets to build temples on, right? They're like, hey, we want to build these places that are safe and
Mm-hmm.
nobody can get to them, and like they're protected. And so I thought it was really cool in this episode that they kind of tied that into, because they said there was like, I think it was like 9 planets that were they found that were like protected and safe, and
By the Old
all of them
Republic.
were destroyed. All of them were destroyed, and it sounds like Adadin is the last one that's available, or the last one that's there. So it's kind of cool that we're getting like Old Republic and High Republic stuff brought into it.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And then, so yeah, like you said, they stole the data drive, got out of there. They're getting chased by X-Wings, get to the plane. And the kids, good on them, man. I'm not getting on the plane. We're not going until you tell us who you are.
We're not leaving.
Yeah.
That was good. They stood their ground. They had the backup of Smee with the blowtorch behind them, and pretty much like, you got to tell us the truth. Like, tell us the freaking truth.
Yeah.
We don't know who you are. So, he admits that he's, alone like they are, and claims that he never said technically he was a Jedi, which I guess technically he never said he was, but that's all he really gives. He doesn't give too much else about who he actually is.
Right.
But they have this understanding that now he works for them. They don't work for him. And he's like, yeah, fine, whatever, let's agree to it. But it's like, how much do you trust this guy at this point? Like,
right. Yeah.
he's clearly just after the treasure. Like, that's all he keeps talking about whenever we see him not in front of the kids. So,
yeah.
We get this cool little.
Yeah. Go on, please.
Let's say we get this cool scene where they're taking off in the ship that me and you have seen the Lego set for, which I want for Christmas, by the way. Hint, hint. If you're watching, my wife, there's a cool ship that they are flying on. That's the Lego set, and Wim and Fern get to live out, I think, every single Star Wars fan dream.
Oh,
which is to get in the seat of a space blaster and defend a ship, which I think they need to absolutely put inside Galaxy's Edge. If instead of having engineers on the freaking Smuggler's Run, if you could put people in like separate tunnels and make them go sit in a ship like that and be able to have this like 360, that'd be so freaking sweet.
That would be cool. And with them doing the refresh, can you imagine if that's actually what they did?
I hope so, because they did it in A New Hope. Like, bring that. Was it New Hope or was it Empire?
No, it was a New Hope when Luke was like, I got one, and he's like,
yeah.
And that was kind of cool. Is I like that we got that style of a scene for like the new generation, because like Luke shoots him, he's like, I got one, and Han's like, don't get cocky, and then he's like, I got one, and she's like, that was my shot, and I was just like, yep, all right, yeah. No, it's so cool, and we got like Neil's like flying the plane like up and down, and then KB's trying to put in like all the different coordinates to get to Adadin, and then yeah, it's just like the whole crew was working together to get this done, and then like they finally punch it to hyperspace, and then we get Kim talking to the X-wing, and he's like, "Where are they going?" And it was just kind of like a big teaser. I mean, like, hey, let's hope they get there. Like,
She said, if
did
I
she
told
give him the
you,
coordinates?
you wouldn't believe me, is what she said.
What if she gave him the wrong coordinates, though?
Ooh. That would make sense because we're only on episode 3. And
Yeah.
can you imagine, like, they just get home next episode?
Yeah.
It's just over and done with.
Yeah. The last 5 episodes is just Neil just being Neil, just going through his days, going to class.
Yeah. Doing the assessment, finding out his results, going to college.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one thing I found interesting about this, so when I didn't pay attention much to the names of the first 2 episodes, but I noticed when I was hitting play on this 3rd episode, it was called Very Interesting as an Astrogration Problem. That was the name of the episode, was Very Interesting, comma, as an Astrogration Problem. And I was like, the heck is astrogration?
Okay.
So I looked it up. And it's called The Science or Art of Navigating a Spaceship, or in short, space navigation.
Okay.
And then I also noticed when they were talking with Kim, she was flying around, grabbing papers, things like that. And she actually said that exact line. She said, this is very interesting as an astrogration problem. And I was like, have they done that in the other 2 episodes? Like, I didn't check to see what those names were, but I'm like, is that like a little Easter egg they're doing where they're naming the episodes? Like, I always think it's funny whenever like a show or a movie says the title of it in the movie. Like, I'm like, like it's just a little nod to it. And I noticed that. And I think I only noticed it because it was such an interesting title for an episode. And then she actually said that exact sentence during the show. I don't have it in front of me. Do you have the...
I'm trying to see if I can find it real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did look at the title briefly before I clicked it, but because the last couple episodes weren't. So did they say the titles in the last other episodes?
So the episode 1 was called This Could Be a Real Adventure, which I feel like Wim says, this could be a real adventure. And then the second title is called Way, Way Out Past the Barrier, which I feel like Neil, I think he says when they were talking about freaking out after they're like jumped to hyperspeed and they kind of stopped. They're like, we are way, way out past the barrier. So maybe that's what they're doing.
Huh.
Interesting.
I was tempted to text our space friend to see if he could tell me what astrogration was. But I'm sure it's late over there, so it probably doesn't. No, ignore that.
What if he doesn't know? Like, how dare you?
Yeah, you don't work there. You don't work there at all. No, this show, this was my favorite episode out of the 3. Definitely, I felt like it was action packed. There was a lot going on, and I think it like expanded the characters a lot more. And again, I really like the fact that this is like a Star Wars show without being a Star Wars show, and it's like hints of it.
All I've asked for the longest time is give me some new and exciting, because there's so much you can expand on in Star Wars and just have that familiarity. Like we saw Jawas in this episode.
Yep.
And it's just like these little nods. You're like, oh yeah, it's Star Wars. Like you're almost reminded, oh yeah, this is Star Wars. Like with things, because it's not constant lightsabers or, actual Jedis, I guess. Like there's just nods and mentions to it. I think it's super cool. One thing I was going to talk about too was the totally forgot. Sick.
Well, while you're doing that, I got something. Yeah, so you mentioned Crimson Jack Silvo Nawood of the Jod Na clan. He gets on the ship and he's like, I'm lonely, I'm alone, just like all you guys are. We're loners, basically. And I was like, you've lied to me this entire episode. And I'm like, these kids, they're like, you've lied to me. Like, I was really shocked that the kids are like, no, but seriously, who are you? Like, yeah, I was just like, even with you saying you're alone, I'm like, I still don't trust you. You're not alone at all. Yeah.
I think KB really just doesn't trust. And she had that conversation too with Kim where she's like, are you going to go with him? And he's like, he got us as far, like, not sure what to do at this point. And she's like, well, call me if you ever need me. And I'm like, how does she have her number? Like, how does she call her? I don't understand how this is working out. But
yeah,
just so much mystery, man. So I remember my point now. I'm really upset because when we first watched these 2 episodes, it was Saturday,
Yeah.
and I only had to wait like 3 days to watch this, and now I'm
Oh.
really upset that I have to wait an entire week to
Yep.
watch this show again.
Yep. Hey, I know what you can do.
What's that?
Play Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
There you go.
Yeah, go play Star Wars Jedi Survivor. No,
I need to. It looks so interesting. Every clip I see, it looks so good.
I saw a commercial yesterday for Star Wars Battlefront 2, and it was like where everybody's in their house and they're like talking about the game, and like they're like strike me down, and then like they disappear, and then it's Anna Kendrick standing at her fridge, and she's like strike me down and I'll come back stronger, and then she transports into the game as a rebel, and it's like her with the ponytail as a skin, and I was like, wait, why do we not have an Anna Kendrick skin in this video game? And I was like, why have we never released Anna Kendrick in this game?
I've never seen that.
That's crazy. I'll text it to you. Huh. Yeah, no, it's wild.
I saw a trailer for some sort of Star Wars like pilot game coming out.
Really?
I'm not sure what it's called. I don't know if it was supposed to be like a Rogue Squadron type of sequel or something, but it was like showing starship, like X-Wings and TIE fighters going at it, and I was like, this looks cool.
That is.
Sorry, I don't have more info than that, but
no, yeah. No,
briefly.
I know the big one that's coming out is going to be, I think it's Dark Moon or something like that. There's one other game that's coming out that's going to be massive. But yeah, no, there's a lot of cool Star Wars stuff in the works. But yeah, no, I'll have to send you the trailer for the Anna Kendrick once we get off.
So you know how I'm a big fan of Funko Pops?
Yeah.
I saw a Neil Funko Pop today.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, it's close to Christmas, so I was trying to drop subtle hints to my wife,
Yeah,
about
hint.
What I want for Christmas. I want my boy Neil.
To wives, in-laws, anyone that's watching.
Anybody that's watching. Neil Funko Pop. You're my boy Blue.
Yeah, or George Lucas, if you want to send them over to us.
Yeah,
we'll do some
signed.
Unboxings.
I'm not selling it. I'll keep it.
Yeah,
I'll do some unboxings.
Yeah. So, obviously, I think the theme of this episode is just mystery. There's a lot of mystery going on here. Next week's episode is going to be interesting. It sucks that we have to wait 7 days, but we will be here next week.
Absolutely.
Doing this again on the Scruffy Nerf Herder podcast, Skeleton Crew podcast. TM.
Trademark. We'll trademark
LLC.
that. Yeah. Heck yeah.
So, all right, man. Without further ado, appreciate everybody for listening, and we will see you guys in the next video. May the Force be with you.
Always. My boy Neil.